Brothers and sisters, welcome and thank you for coming today. First order of business, because we are outstanding examples of old school Aussies, let us not forget our manners. Even though the government, law enforcers and elite corporates always appear to have forgotten theirs. Let us extend our right arm forward and up, raise our middle finger and salute a big thank you to Jared Bledgley, VLAD and the Anti-Association Laws. Thank you for giving us the very reason we needed to come out of our homes by car, by truck, by bike, to join together on this momentous Australia Day to show you, our government and law enforcers, how dreadfully wrong you all are. Australia is not dead. We are not a nation of sheep, and we are not system-fed fools. We are a nation that remembers exactly who we are, where we come from, and what we were founded upon. I thank Max and Cheryl for inviting me to speak in front of you all today, and I thank you all for coming and listening to what we all have to say, to give you words of empowerment and freedom, especially the freedom to choose your lifestyle and the right to associate with whoever you damn well want. The Queensland government and their counterparts will run right through the papers that speakers are paid PR specialists hired by the United Motorcycle Council and clubs throughout Australia. I stand before you as a woman, a political activist for truckies and bikies, and as such, I am not paid speaker. I am an everyday Australian who has a tertiary education. I am a truckie, I am a mother, I am a sister. And I am a sister who is deeply disturbed and angry about what is happening in our country. All around this sunburnt country of ours, we have monuments and history of enslaved convicts rising up against jailers. We have everyday battlers standing their ground to stare down the face of oppressive governments and their puppets on a string, our law enforcers. A 112 kilometres west of this very point, Melbourne, is your history. December 3rd, 1854, the most organised rebellion of this country, Eureka Stockade. It was the birthplace of our nation. Not these sterile steps, the representation of the state feudal system that we stand in front of today. But it was the very soil of Australia, the blood, sweat and tears of our democracy and birthright, Eureka Stockade. Our forefathers fighting oppressive, corporate, corrupt government and the government choice to increase police presence, call in reinforcements from Melbourne, and as was their view of the system, to enforce their self-administered right to exert their authority over us, the rabble. Today we have gathered as a peaceful yet powerfully assertive protest against laws throughout this country that invade our freedom to choose the lifestyle we live, our freedom to associate with whomever we choose. We are here in front of their gate, us, their rabble. We are here in front of their impudent, ignorant, belligerent faces to show loud and clear to both state and federal governments across the country that their continual rolling out of these despot, dictatorial laws and their even more overzealous enforcement of that we are not swallowing it. We are not complying, and we as Australians do not, nor do we endorse these laws in their entirety at all. Just because last year the Queensland government, Campbell Newman, Jared Bledgley, rushed through laws that were not only new laws but also amendments to existing laws. People, the media, are calling them bikie laws, VLAD laws. There seems to be a constant confusion as to the effect of these laws. To the people of Queensland, there is no confusion. They are enduring these laws each day with Gestapo-type invasions on their lives, on both public and private property. VLAD has seen mandatory sentences given to those arrested under them, longer sentences than any pedophile, woman beater, or perpetrators of crime against the elderly have ever been given in this country. I was going to highlight these laws individually, but they are there obtainable via technology to read for yourself. 3 or more participants in a criminal organisation being together in a public place now carries a minimum 6 months and maximum 3-year jail term. With those protesting in Queensland today in our minds, those who enter or attempt to enter a prescribed place or attend or enter a prescribed event carries a 6-month minimum jail sentence, 3 years maximum. VLAD adds an extra 15 years jail for a member, 25 years for a president, secretary, etc. It is mandatory. No submissions, no exceptions. The only exception is if you agree to help the police and they agree in writing. I want you to note that the writing in the schedule is writing which attracts a 7-year jail term. This is not the rioting that the banditos were charged with. But here today, as we are, this can be a 7-year jail term for each and every one of us here today if we were in Queensland. And I pray that our sisters and our brothers fare well today up in Queensland. The Bail Act was amended so that if the cops allege you are a member of a criminal organisation, then you bear the onus to prove that you should get bail. This carries forward to family, associates, etc. Irrespective of what you are charged with, and even if the penalty is only a mere fine, remember, the cops only have to allege. The Chief Magistrate ordered all magistrates to send bikie bail applications to him in Brisbane. This causes a delay in getting a bail hearing, and people in custody are kept there unnecessarily. And it is totally against the principle that when we're charged, we must have a bail hearing as soon as practical. Tattoo Parlours Act now attempts to keep OMCs, associates and family out of the tattooing business. The Tow Truck Act, the Racing Act, the Electrical Services Act, the Building Act, the Welfare Act, the Education Act, and many, many others to prevent family members, associates from working within these areas. Most recently, a highlight to the Corrective Services Act to make life hell for OMCs, associates and families in jail, solitary confinement, 23 hours a day wearing a hot pink jumpsuit, contact with family by phone or visitation, dangled in front of them as if they are confiscating a toy from a naughty child. Police powers allowing them to stop and search roadside, public place and home without a warrant or probable cause. The list is endless, but one thing that Australians need to take heed of and hear very loud and clear, there is no mention of bikie, motorcyclist or member of any ONC in any act. Each act applies to everyone.
Yep, absolutely.
The Queensland government has done nothing less than declare war on its citizens. And make no mistake about it, it is war. And it is war of the cruelest kind. They are deciding who is good, who is bad, and on what grounds they can make this decision. They are ripping good men away from their families and giving them mandatory sentences. They have decided that as a government, they can choose what a legitimate profession is and what isn't. They can decide what profession to them is dirty and what isn't. And here is the first of many questions that we need to seriously ask ourselves. These scum dictators impose these laws, and then we must throw our hard-earned money and the money they call dirty, the money they allege are proceeds of crime, into the system to fight such horrendous oppression and dictatorship that at the discretion of their system, the government that has been utterly, totally raped and manipulated to the whims of elite corporates to win back what we have had the very first minute we drew breath, our freedom. I make no apology for pointing it out. You are being treated by your government and your law enforcers as terrorists in your own country.
Yep.
I wrote back in October 2012 about a specialist jail being made. Many who read that were unsure and hesitant, and many said I was a dickhead and other assorted names. I hate to say that I was right, and I hate now that good men are locked up in that prison. What I hate more is the naivety of my fellow Australians, that they do not comprehend that this prison is Australia's Guantanamo. This prison exists, and it exists under one banner only. It is a terrorist prison, built on the same principle as Guantanamo, and that should scare each and every one of you and each and every Australian into action. The Andina 5. What a horrendous crime against humanity and families, livelihood and social freedoms. Arrested for having a beer together. 3 of them, family members, wives without partners, fathers, brothers for Christmas. I did have one question a month ago. Why weren't the women being arrested along with their men? I was beginning to think that the government was treading carefully so as not to have the media and the rest of the country on them for such an act. I was thinking they had dropped their balls when it came to enforcing their own laws. Sadly, no, they are not hesitating. They haven't dropped their jewels. They have arrested their first woman, a partner of a life and death member, for having a beer at the Crown Hotel in Dayborough on December 19th. The men were wearing their colours inside the premises, and the woman was wearing a vest which merely said property of Crow. The woman apparently is an employee for the Brisbane City Council as an assistant librarian. Australian law does not distinguish between men and women. One penalty fits all. There is no separatism. Men and women under this law will go. Think about the penalty, right alongside the men, which women will also now be receiving. They have now, as Hitler did, overstepped the rounds of gentlemanly conduct and openly target women, the wives, the mothers, our sisters. We spent the late 60s and 70s, from the time of Vietnam, claiming freedom of choice and lifestyle. We have done the hard yards. Why have we allowed ourselves and what we created to be taken back by government and elite corporatists to very Victorian, yet a 50s and 60s social mindset? Why in the hell are we allowing forced registration of our tattoos? I heard a story of a 74-year-old woman. I don't know its validity, but I heard it. She rocked up to her local Queensland cop shop, took off her top and bra and announced she was there to have her breast tattoos registered as per the law insists. Apparently, the cops were a little taken back by this. However, they proceeded to photograph and register her tattoos. Her only comment to them throughout the process, "My husband didn't die in Vietnam and my grandfather didn't die in Germany, for you see you next Tuesdays to get away with this shit." With that, she left. The reality of tattoo registration, truth is within it. And here it is. At this point, I ask the law enforcers standing behind me. When your employer, our government, instructs you to turn on your fellow Australians and fire, whilst we rise up as the people, for the people, with the people, I want you to ponder one question, and I want you to answer yourselves honestly. Is your mortgage, your possible decorated career, going to be more important to you than being an Australian? Which brings me back, brothers and sisters, to the very beginning. To give you empowerment and courage to build this fight. To not fear our government, to definitely not fear our law enforcers. You need to recognise that we are no longer top of the food chain. Our governments and our corporates are, and we the people are their prey. There is no reason for any of us not to be educated or aware of our great Australian history. Google, God bless Google. Refamiliarise yourselves with your birthright. Your birthright stemmed from your forefathers' blood at Eureka Stockade. Read about the 1964 and 65 lockout, the longest dispute in Australian history in Mount Isa and Clonclarry minefields. Read about the Depression and the meat strikes. Our history in this country, as its people, is built on people fucking power. And it was people power against government and imperial systematic rule. We are not the rabble they label us to be and teach us to hate each other as such. We are the very reason this country of ours is here in the first place. We are the people that bled, sweat and laboured